Hi and welcome back. This is Dr. Shweta. In this video, I'm going to discuss with you historical background of the Victorian Age. This video is all about the socio-political changes that happened during the reign of Queen Victoria. It was an age of social change and political turmoil. So let's begin. The period from the year 1837 to 1901 is considered as the Victorian era or the Victorian Age. This age is marked after the name of the ruling monarch Queen Victoria, who came to the throne in the year 1837, and this period ended with her death in 1901. Queen Victoria was nearly 18 years old when she became the monarch or the queen. Let us now see what were the socio-political conditions during the Victorian Age. England saw many changes during this period. Firstly, England changed from a rural agricultural country to an urban industrialized country. This was the time of industrial revolution in England. A lot of technological, scientific and industrial innovations were being carried out during this period. For example, this was the period of mass production, the discovery of steam engines, the introduction of railways, the sewing machines, the coming of gas and electricity and telegraph. All these scientific and industrial growth and development led to an enormous expansion of England as a country, which was massively producing goods. There were a lot of factories that were being operated in London itself, but all these things, all this growth and development was also leading towards huge social disparity in human working conditions. Child labor, increase in pollution, and a growth of poverty was happening. Filth was increasing and diseases were also increasing in the cities. The population was moving from countryside to cities in search of work. The cities like London were getting crowded, and it was a time of huge poverty among the working classes and an increase in diseases in the areas which are known as slums. There was also a huge increase in the mining work where the children and women were especially being employed, and they were always underpaid. So all this led to an exploitation of the poor people. It led to an increase in the pay disparity, which resulted in the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. This was also a time of over increase in the population of the UK, which almost doubled. So people started moving to North America and other colonies in search of better life. The Irish people were especially affected by the increase in hunger and poverty because of the potato famine that came in 1845. And a large number of Irish people moved to England and Scotland and in various other colonies abroad in search of work. As a result of this poverty, hunger and migration, many social reforms were demanded by the general population, and therefore we see many laws and many acts that came into effect during this time period. For example, the Child Labour Act, the Mines Act, the Act related to public health and safety, the end of slavery in the British Empire and the Education Act, etc. We also see a rise in the middle class during this time period. Many people from middle class increased their skill set and saw themselves rising towards the new wealthy society. These middle class people who were earlier not so rich, now they started acquiring for themselves big, large houses and started educating their children, and also started to employ domestic servants for themselves. So the overall living standard of the middle class increased. The democracy saw a huge growth during this time period, and in 1918 we see that there came a universal suffrage for men where voting rights were extended to even those men who did not have any land or property in their names. Earlier, the voting rights were restricted to only those gentry, the upper class and the nobles. We also saw the fight for the voting rights for women during this time, but it was not until 1930 that women were finally given some voting rights equally as to the men. This spirit also saw the expansion of the British Empire. Though before the start of 19th century, Britain had already lost her American empire, since America was earlier a British colony. But we see that before the start of 19th century, America witnessed the revolution called the American Revolution, and liberated, or we can say freed herself from the British rule. But during this time, India was a major colony under the British rule and we were still being colonized by the British monarchy. Britain also increased its trade dominance around the world because it has a sound, strong naval and military strength in comparison to the other European nations like France and Spain. By the time the reign of Queen Victoria ended in 1901, the British Empire could boast very proudly by saying that the sun of the British Empire never sets. That means the British Empire is so vast that it has captured most of the nations and brought them under her imperial control. That was a brief about the socio-political or historical background of the Victorian era. Now let us discuss the literature that was being written during the Victorian age. The overall readership during the Victorian age increased exponentially. A lot of literature was being written and the readership also increased very quickly. The Education Act also helped increase the readership because now it was compulsory for a child of the age 10 and above to attend the school. The literature of this period is more critical and different from the literature that was produced during the Romantic period. The printing press made the production of the texts much cheaper and faster, and the construction of railroads helped increase the network of distribution of these texts quickly and easily to most parts of the country. Since the major force that lived in cities during this time were mostly working class with not much time with them for leisure activities, so naturally the most favorite genre that people preferred during this time period was the novel. Since they did not have much time with them to appreciate the genres like poetry, so they preferred to read novels or fiction. The next video will be about the literature that was popular during the Victorian era. So let's move on to the next video.